From getting called out for his absurd belief about children transitioning genders.
Do you believe that somebody can go through hormone therapy? Can they change their gender if they're a child?
I think that's totally fine as long as everyone is consenting. And you agree with.
To getting called out for being two-faced.
Like, oh, Charlie's super fake. He shits on Prime online, but in person, behind the scenes with the mask off, he actually loves it.
My name's Ryan, and these are 6 times Penguinz0 came dangerously close to being cancelled. Starting with Penguinz0's debate with Sneeko, which went horribly wrong when Charlie was challenged on his belief of children being able to transition genders. This was way more damaging for Charlie than it was for Sneeko. This was a disaster. Charlie took an L on underage children transitioning. It's a life-altering decision. Who told him this was a good idea? Sneeko has been quite vocal about his stance regarding the age of consent, often suggesting that the age of consent should just be when an individual reaches puberty, and that laws regarding this should be abolished.
Age of consent should be maturity. It's not even 18 in most states. I think it's better that people get married at 16, 17 than to have a bunch of premarital.
And soon enough, Charlie and Sneeko would join a call and clash in what would become the most intense debate on the platform.
So I entered into the Thunderdome and we started talking. I made it clear that I found his statements on the age of consent and children marrying adults being f***ing hideous. Absolutely revolting. And then he started arguing about, well, what is a child? We must define a child, you know, it's not actually being under 18, it's all a bunch of hooey. And I really think if you have to start arguing about, well, what technically is a child, you're already way too far gone. Like, that is so f***ing weird. And in no uncertain terms, multiple times throughout the debate, Sneeko says that he is okay with people that are aged 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 marrying adults that are 18 or older.
So why can't a 12-year-old marry an 18-year-old?
Most likely that's not going to happen. You know why? Because Islamically, if
we're not talking most likely, just say.
If the families have consented, the kid is mature, the kid is ready. Why should I stop
at 12 years old? At 12 years old.
If the kid is physically mature, the parents consent, both parties are happy.
A 12-year-old being physically mature.
Unironically calling a 14-year-old and 12-year-old mature enough for a marriage, those are middle schoolers. Like, holy shit. I think that is extremely concerning to be advocating for something like that. Like, would Sneeko be okay if his best friend ended up marrying a 14-year-old? He certainly shouldn't be. No one should be okay with something like that. Like, that's f***ing terrible.
14-year-old adult, can someone check Sneeko's hard drive? As the debate kept going, it was clear that Sneeko was on the back foot, while Charlie kept questioning him with different scenarios. But things soon started going downhill for Charlie after Sneeko cleverly pivoted the topic by comparing the age of consent with the age at which someone should be able to undergo gender reassignment surgery.
Do you believe that somebody can go through hormone therapy? Can they change their gender if they're a child?
I think that's totally fine as long as everyone is consenting. And you agree with.
Okay, so as long as everyone...
If your parents are okay with it and you are okay with it, I think that's totally a familial decision to make, yeah.
Okay, so a child can cut their penis off and take hormone blockers and change their biology forever, but they can't get married?
Charlie's stance on the age of consent was flipped against him, making him look ridiculous.
I thought he was talking in hyperbole. I thought he was just exaggerating, being over the top, talking about the entire subject of transitioning. I had no idea that any living, breathing human being actually thought that that's how transitioning works, where you just go into a doctor saying, I feel like switching genders, and they lay you down on the operating table and just snip your whole f***ing meat off. I didn't know that that's what he actually believed. I haven't hid this take, and it's not a new take from me. I've talked about this a couple times throughout the years on stream. I have no complaints if a kid gets interested in transitioning and starts talking to their family about it. So their parents start talking to doctors, the kid starts talking to doctors and therapists and all of this, because the process of transitioning is one that takes place over the course of many years. It's not something that just happens like that.
But the damage was already done, and Charlie's lack of experience with debating and not being well prepared for it resulted in him falling for Sneeko's traps and making himself sound foolish.
So all that shit that people keep dogpiling and spouting about me about how I want all kids to go out there and get their genitals chopped off is just fucked up. Like, it's so ridiculous. I recognize I did a horrible job of arguing in this debate, which isn't surprising considering I don't debate. This is not something that's in my skill set, which of course led to some embarrassingly dog shit arguments.
And just when you think this is already pretty bad for Charlie, he messed up even further when he tried to come up with an analogy of picking up a sport to play and compared it with gender transitioning.
The one I've seen people reference a couple times is when I briefly mentioned sports in this topic. It was a stupid point to try and make. I was getting hit by like some rebound psychic damage listening to some of the drivel brain rot that Sneeko was spouting about the age of consent, and I don't know why I thought this was like an argument to try and make, but I brought up sports in this subject, and I was going to try and elaborate on it, but didn't at all. What I was going to try and say is that when a kid gets interested in a sport, they'll talk to their parents about it, they'll research the sport, go through the process of learning about it, and when it comes to transitioning, it's still a process where you talk to your family about it, you learn about it. Like, it wasn't a point where I was trying to say, well, changing genders is a lot like picking between baseball and soccer. Like, it's not what I was trying to get at, but because I didn't elaborate on it and it really wasn't a good argument to try and make in the first place, that's one people have harped on a lot.
However, unlike the situation with Sneeko where Charlie almost got himself cancelled by saying foolish things, the next situation almost got Charlie cancelled for not saying anything at all. In June 2024, Ava Tyson and Dr. Disrespect were under the full wrath of the internet after being exposed as PDF files. However, in the midst of this, Charlie found himself in hot water after Sneeko called him out for being biased and not covering the Chris Tyson situation on his main channel when it seemed like he covered Dr. Disrespect's situation right away.
Yo, look out, Moist Critical is not gonna go talk about the Chris situation because he wants to have the Mr. Beast collab. Bro, you're gonna talk about every other trending situation, Dr. Disrespect, Sneeko, anything that goes viral goes on your main channel. Chris, the associate of the biggest YouTube channel in the world, you do a 4-minute clip on your second channel. Stop coping and be a journalist if you're gonna be a journalist, or just say that you wanna have the collab. Stop lying.
But Charlie managed to debunk these accusations by stating that he'd already covered the whole topic on stream and had also posted a video on it.
When covering the Ava Tyson situation, I was attacked by a lot of people for not being quick enough. Even though I covered it within like the first 6 hours, people were unsatisfied that I hadn't made a video within like the first 20 minutes of it dropping. And then when I did finally finish the full video covering all of it, it was another massive problem where now I only did it out of an obligation because people called me out.
Twitter being upset Charlie didn't have a video on this within 20 seconds of it breaking is wild. And if you thought that Charlie posting a video covering the situation would put the controversy to rest, you'd be surprised to find out that his video on Ava Tyson led to even more backlash. Because Charlie came under fire for not using Ava Tyson's preferred pronouns, which made him come across as transphobic to the online community. 22 minutes and doesn't once refer to her by her actual pronouns. So disappointing to see Moist Critical refuse to be an actual ally of the LGBT community just to appease the transphobes in his audience. Literally every other person got referred to by their pronouns except Ava. In the same video, Charlie also talks about Sneeko's hypocrisy for calling him out for not making a video on a PDF file while advocating for abolishing the law of age of consent himself. But people online received it poorly and instead accused Charlie of deflection. Instead of solely focusing on the PDF file Chris, half of the video is Moist Critical going off in Sneeko and dissing my circle. Nice way to deflect the situation, Charlie. In his video, Charlie admits that he made an honest mistake with Ava Tyson's pronouns because he thought that using the pronoun they was alright and that he had no ill intentions and that he supports the LGBT community. He also addressed the backlash he received for talking about Sneeko in the Tyson video, calling it a quote lose-lose situation.
And then I also got accused of being a transphobe because I didn't use Ava Tyson's preferred pronouns, which were she, her. I didn't know that. I thought just calling Ava Tyson by her name was okay, and I had also heard when I went to the Mr. Beast thing, someone refer to Ava Tyson with they. So I was truly under the impression that that was okay. And for that, I was annihilated by a good chunk of Twitter. And then annihilated by another good chunk of Twitter because I called out Sneeko, who was the main proponent about me covering for Mr. Beast to keep the collab alive. I wasn't talking about Ava Tyson because I wanted the Mr. Beast collab. And I talked about how absurd that statement was, especially given his history with fighting against the age of consent. He's been very vocal about how much he hates the age of consent, and so I talked about that briefly at the end of the video, which then changed the whole narrative for a lot of people where I never talked about Ava Tyson and only talked about Sneeko. So it was a complete lose-lose, because if I didn't talk about what Sneeko was saying, I would have been called a coward for not addressing it and talking about, like, well, he was going to cover for Mr. Beast until Sneeko called him out. So, like, if I didn't do it, I would have been attacked. I did do it, still got attacked. It really was unwinnable.
After near cancellations, Charlie grew tired of the internet's negativity, reducing his online presence. Yet even this harmless action sparked another close call with cancellation.
I've been in a lot of drama recently. I'm in hot water and I'm biting on the fart bubbles that pop up in the bathtub here. It is a lot. So let's start with the most recent one today. My retirement. I didn't know I was retiring.
It all started with this post titled Goodbye Charlie, which announced that Charlie would be quitting a podcast that he'd been active on. Charlie has made the decision to leave both the official podcast and Red Thread. He wants to go on an indefinite hiatus to scale back his time spent on the internet.
It turns out the patient zero behind all of this was a post Jackson made announcing that I would be leaving the podcasts, which is something I thought about periodically for quite a few months now, mainly because I started to recognize that I was becoming the very thing I'd make fun of with being chronically online. Like, I just was always online, and the podcasts were a big proponent of that, and I just kind of wanted to scale back the amount of time I spend online. So, and I kept Jackson in the loop the whole time here about where my head was at, and last week I told him, hey man, I think this is going to be where I hang up the jersey. You can put it in the rafters, throw it in the dumpster, but I think I'm just going to be, sailing off into the sunset here and just reducing the amount of stuff I do online. Which he completely understood, so he made the announcement just letting people know that.
However, this sudden announcement, coupled with Charlie streaming a lot less often on Twitch, led his audience to believe that he was retiring from the internet altogether, which was an insane misunderstanding. And then Sneeko, in his usual fashion, added more fuel to the fire by implying that Charlie's quitting because he lost their debate and that cancel culture got to him.
And then that got spun on Twitter and Reddit as Moist Critical's taking an indefinite hiatus and quitting the internet fundamentally. Don't know when I'll be back. He's done with the internet because of all this controversy. Patooey on his grave. He's gone. When looking at the post, I don't even know where that's coming from. It's literally just talking about the podcast and me just stepping away. Like, it doesn't extend beyond that. I can't even wrap my tiny noodle around how anyone could perceive this as me being done with the internet entirely, but that's the story that they ran with, and that's what most people saw, not the actual post.
And when Charlie, oblivious to the fact that the internet believed that he had retired, posted a video as usual, which somehow made his viewers even more upset.
So everyone thought I was quitting the internet, so I posted that video that I was really happy with because it just felt like an OG old school video that made me happy. And then bang! Just a flood of comments and dislikes all saying like, how could you deceive us? I thought you quit, huh? What happened to leaving, huh? I just read this post on Twitter from an account that had a profile pic of titties photoshopped onto Thomas Edison that said you were done, and it had 50,000 likes, so I know it was true, and you're just a liar. I can't even just peacefully walk away from some projects without it being a massive reaction over actual nothing burger information.
And he finally clarified the situation, confirming that him leaving the podcast had nothing to do with all the Sneeko drama he'd been engulfed in lately.
So to set the record straight, no, I'm not retiring, despite what the experts are telling you. All I did was walk away from a couple of projects. That's really it. Like, that's a pretty normal thing to do, especially when one of them I've been doing for like 8 years. I really didn't think it was that deep, especially not deep enough for how big of a story it's become with all of the wild narratives running around about the true reason that I stopped doing it.
Charlie further elaborated on how he's been a subject to a constant stream of negativity from the online community, regardless of what he does and doesn't do.
Everything just feels like a lose-lose, and it has been for like the last 6 or 8 months, I feel, where if I talk about something, it's a problem. Even if something is cut and dry, as like Cody Ko having with a 17-year-old being bad, I caught a lot of for that too. I'm sure a lot of people probably didn't see that, but man, the amount of emails I got and a lot of the things I was seeing, even something as cut and dry as that was an issue when I talked about it. And then if I don't talk about something, or if I don't talk about something fast enough in the time that some people think is appropriate, I'm then accused of covering up for something for an ulterior evil motive. So it just really feels like a rock and a hard place where, regardless, it's just going to be a massive flood of negativity.
And because of Charlie's nature of trying to remain neutral and not pick a side when there's drama, his viewers have become increasingly critical of him. Moist, safe opinion critical.
Because everything is so inflammatory and charged online, it's being perceived in the last, I'd say like the last 2 years, it's really popped off as me making deliberate attempts to appease both sides and play right down the middle to soak up as much as possible. Like it's all this like nefarious scheme where I'm doing this with my hands. And I just don't understand how it's become so incendiary, where that's apparently like a really bad thing now. My opinion is not special, and my opinion isn't one that's pandering to any sides or catering to anything. It's literally just whatever's up here. I sit down for like 30 to 45 minutes on like a topic or like a video that I'm joking around about, and I talk about it. I am legitimately just an average, well, below average height guy who's about to turn 30. I'm not just spitting hot takes out the wazoo here. I'm just being myself. That's all this channel ever has been. And now it's become super controversial to do that if it's not like, you know, picking sides on everything, it seems. And it's very frustrating.
And he finishes his video by talking about how he doesn't feel like he's having fun being himself on the internet anymore, causing him to step away from all the negativity on the internet.
I'm just trying to explain that it hasn't been as fun recently. It hasn't. And the main thing, if you've been around the channel for a while, is I've always wanted this to be fun and never feel like a job. And as hard as it is for me to admit this, a lot of this kind of stuff, it has just started to feel like less fun and more of, well, gotta do this because I'm expected to. Like anytime I go live, most of chat is just telling me about the latest in whatever's happening in the creator space or some other like extremely negative thing going on. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to learn all about that once I turn stream off. So then I spend a few hours learning about these things, and it's all just really upsetting stuff. Like it's not happy, it's all very sad, bad stuff. And it's been making me not happy. So I definitely think I'll be slowing down on covering internet-related drama or like drama in general. I'll still talk about like really wacky stories and like that, but I definitely think I'm gonna be pumping the brakes on like the kind of drama I have been covering recently.
Penguinz0 has always maintained a reputation of being honest and genuine. However, in July of 2024, Charlie found himself in more drama after fans accused him of being two-faced after he complimented Logan Paul on Prime, despite having previously criticized him. For context, Penguinz0 had taken part in one of MrBeast's recent game shows titled 50 YouTubers Fight for $1 Million. Although Charlie didn't do anything controversial in the video itself, a short clip of him talking to Logan Paul behind the scenes would soon go viral, poisoning the minds of his fans and making them question his character.
What's up, bro?
Hey, nice
How are you, dude? I like your videos, dude.
I appreciate
I know you've talked some shit, but
Everybody hates Logan Paul. Is everyone around Logan just a fucking idiot?
I'm always super happy that people don't take it personally.
I don't.
Okay,
I don't.
thank God.
I understand I'm and I'm here to be a bro. So good to see you, bro.
And also, Prime's pretty fire.
Thanks,
Not
bro.
allowed to say it on camera.
I get it, bro. I get it, bro. Talk, bro.
Good luck today, right?
Yeah, likewise, bro. Likewise.
Moist Critical folds in front of Logan Paul after making videos talking about him. This clip left the internet bewildered, with people zoning in on the part where Charlie said Prime's pretty fire, not allowed to say that on camera, jumping to the conclusion that his online personality was fake. Do people forget Moist is just a character? Y'all take this too serious. Folded like a lawn chair, Charlie then made a video addressing the allegations titled, "MrBeast got me into big drama."
People are already lining up with the pitchforks, lit torches, and spit out apple juice about how fake I am and how I folded in front of Logan Paul in person, cowering in fear, piddling my little britches. For some reason, the biggest part about that is what I said about Prime, which is like, oh, Charlie's super fake, he on Prime online, but in person, behind the scenes with the mask off, he actually loves it. I'm not sure if this is people maliciously lying about me, like Pinocchio, or if they just genuinely don't know, or maybe heard something that was wrong, but I've never shit on Prime. I've actually only ever talked positively about it on stream or in videos. Me saying it's pretty fire but I can't say it on camera is literally the simplest joke ever, like a water cooler joke at work. I've talked about it on camera numerous times. Anytime I've ever been asked about it or have made a video where it's been a subject, I've always mentioned that I actually think Prime's pretty good.
The audience had misunderstood Charlie's liking for other brands and his dislike for Logan Paul to automatically mean that Charlie was against Prime as well.
And I still wouldn't. You wouldn't catch me running around like Frankenstein's monster trying to hunt down a pallet of Prime, but it's good. And I've always said that on streams and in videos, so I don't know where this narrative is that I've it publicly, but behind the scenes I'm actually like an addict injecting it into my veins or lying to Logan Paul about it. I've always consistently said I actually like Prime. I think it's pretty fire. So I don't know why that's something that's sticking. Like, I prefer gamer sups, obviously, but that doesn't mean every other drink that's a competitor is bad.
Another issue his critics had was how Charlie seemed to be so nice and friendly to Logan Paul, resulting in accusations about Charlie being two-faced. These little YouTubers talk so much, but whenever they run into Big Bro, this always happens. He's so little, gotta be 5'2". Charlie elaborates on the situation further and provides crucial context that was missing in the short clip that went viral. The fact that Logan Paul was trying to fix his mistakes and admit his wrongdoings, and Charlie was just being respectful to him for taking accountability.
But now let's get to that second part where Logan Paul's spiritual pressure sent me to the floor like it was right out of the Bleach anime, and I was just trembling in fear to confront him directly. So, this was filmed a month or so ago, a little over a month ago now. What was happening was he was publicly trying to make amends with the victims of his Crypto-Zoo scam that he butt-f***ed them all with, and as far as I know, he has been paying some people back, and at the time was still in the process of paying people back through whatever program he set up for it. But there was none of this lawsuit going on, and one of the first things that he said was that he actually deserved all of the shit that he got for it, for all of the mistakes that he made. Ludwig was also there, someone else who was on Logan Paul, and Logan was saying something to a similar effect there as well, from what I recall. So at the time, he was in the process of trying to fix all the dog that he put innocent people through.
Charlie defends himself and holds his ground, explaining that he was trying to do the mature thing instead of being childish and hating on Logan Paul despite his efforts to fix things.
I had always said, as long as the victims are made whole again and they get their money back, that's a happy ending, but Logan is still a scumbag for ever doing it in the first place, which is something that he also said he deserved everything he got from doing that. So, I have always said as well that I never harbor hatred for someone who will actually change. There's nothing to gain with just holding a grudge forever. That's childish. If someone is actually willing to learn and grow from things, I'm more than willing to break bread with them. Logan Paul was very respectful of not only all the other competitors, but all of the staff at the event as well. So when he reached out to say hi, I was more than willing to be receptive and mature about the situation. He immediately opened up about all of the problems that he had caused and how regretful he was. So what would be the point in me getting there and just spitting on him if he's actually going to start being less of a piece of shit? That's the whole goal of calling someone out, so that way they can learn from it and not be that insufferable asshole anymore.
He then goes on to address a clip of him saying that everyone around Logan is an idiot and explains what it means and sticks to his words.
Everyone around Logan a idiot. And that is super true, because I don't know who the Logan Paul surrounds himself with, but it must be actual lobotomites, because I don't know who would sign off on Logan suing CoffeeZilla. But at the time, that wasn't happening. All that was happening was him seemingly actively trying to fix all of the things that he f***ed in the face.
The topic of not taking things personally was yet another angle from which Charlie received public backlash, which he also clarifies.
Now, as for the not taking things personally statement, I've been very consistent with that from the very beginning. When I make a video about something, it's usually just for the sake of making jokes or being goofy about it, so I never really want whatever I'm talking about to be taken in a personal level or as anything like that. Though that does vary on a case-to-case basis depending on how serious the topic is, because I've absolutely crossed over the line in making things much more personal than they probably should. But usually I try and just keep it more surface stuff about why something is bad or whatever happened, whatever they did is stupid or whatever. And that's how I always want it to be when I make a video covering something where even the protagonist who I'm making jokes about can watch it and not be mad, but instead be entertained about it. And hopefully not walk away from it thinking that I have this burning hatred for them that will never go away. Now, in Logan Paul's case, it is a little bit different, because with the dead body situation as well as the Crypto-Zoo scam, I definitely did get far more personal than just surface level jokes, talking about him being like an actual piece of surrounded by sycophant pieces of as well that just continue to enable horrible behavior. But at the end of the day, all of it was geared towards a goal. In the Crypto-Zoo scam, getting everyone paid back and explaining why it needs to be paid back and is a horrible thing. So Logan Paul taking that and letting it not be personal but instead constructive is the best case scenario there. Not just for me, but Ludwig and everyone else that's called Logan Paul out, which was like half of the competition, by the way. So it's just, I don't see why this ended up being a huge drama thing, because all of it's consistent with all of the that I've said on stream for like the last 6 months with Logan Paul.
It became clear that Charlie was just being a mature human being, and after him shedding light on the context of the clip, his haters just seemed immature and childish for getting triggered instead of trying to understand what was really taking place behind the scenes.
So meeting Logan in person and him wanting to talk about this, I was more than willing to do, and he was very respectful, took full responsibility and accountability in person, so I was more than willing to be mature about this and talk to him as a human being. I don't see why in any circumstances this would be perceived as being two-faced. I did this most recently with Sneeko. Before him, it was that person that was calling me a deep state, new world order chill or whatever. Brought him on the podcast to talk it all out. Like, it's something I've always done and always will be willing to do. I think it's very childish to just plug your ears and say, boo, 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 not listening to you, whatever, and not engage with someone that you have an issue with.
Bro has a normal good-minded conversation and Twitter loses it. The entire drama can be summed up in Twitter gets angry over Charlie having basic human decency. However, unlike the last situation where the bulk of the criticism came from Twitter, Charlie once again faced backlash, but this time from his own fanbase. On the 18th of May 2024, Idubbbz posted a video apologizing for his old, dark and edgy content, where he frequently used racist and offensive slurs as jokes, which had a massive influence on his younger fans.
I am responsible for creating a lot of hurtful and damaging content on this channel. I don't think they some of these videos were edgy. I think they were just outright cruel.
However, the way Charlie reacted to this apology would go on to become one of the biggest L's in the history of Penguinz0's channel. This is so tone deaf, and I hate that you can't see the damage he's done and accept that he was wrong. Charlie spends 20 minutes explaining why someone using the N-word didn't hurt him personally. According to him, Idubbbz's apology wasn't required at all, and his content wasn't as bad as he made it seem to be.
I feel like his perspective on it is very warped by the way the internet has evolved over the years. The way he talks about this content makes it sound like he used to murder puppies for these videos, which it was never that extreme. I very much would consider it edgy. It was 2016 edginess in all of its glory. That was entirely the brand. And for its time, it lived peacefully. You know, all four nations, water, earth, fire, air, lived together in harmony with all of this edginess going on. Now, obviously, times have changed, and he has changed. He's gotten older. He's in his 30s now. In your 30s, it's not exactly entertaining to just be spamming slurs for shock humor. I don't find that entertaining, and he doesn't either. So it's totally fine to want to distance yourself from making content like that. But I don't think it was a mistake that he made those videos. Like, they're not hurtful, nor do I really think they're damaging.
He goes on to state that he believed that Idubbbz's content was never made to be hurtful and was always just a form of edgy entertainment.
But at the end of the day, I don't think the goal of his content was ever to be hurtful or damaging. He was just trying to entertain and using edginess as shock humor, which for its time was acceptable online.
One of the main reasons that Idubbbz's content was under fire that could negatively impact kids watching and foster racist behavior, but Charlie didn't treat the issue with the importance it deserved.
I feel like the main pain point of those videos he used to make is the slurs in them. Like, his catchphrase was 2 slurs strung together, right? Like, that's not exactly something to be super proud of. I get that. But to go back and say, like, all of it's shit, all of it's, bad and cruel, I think is going way overboard, because it's not. I don't think any of it was cruel. I don't think the criticism was unwarranted, but it's fine to just regret the way you handled it to a certain extent without saying all the content was damaging or cruel or bad.
But Charlie would soon come to regret posting this after seeing the flurry of angry and disappointed comments by his own fans calling him out for defending Idubbbz's old and racist content and trying to criticize him when he was just apologizing and trying to fix his mistakes. I don't think Charlie is fully grasping the impact Idubbbz's content had on kids back in the day. And only 5 minutes into Moist Critical's take about Idubbbz's apology, and it's the worst take ever. He deadass said it wasn't harmful to anyone but the people he targeted in his videos, and that he doesn't really think the apology was really warranted. Even his commenters disagree. Many of his own fans had experienced firsthand the harm that normalizing slurs and racism caused in young kids who didn't know any better and felt like Charlie was not understanding the weight of these words. I'm a huge fan of yours and I happen to be black. It's tough watching you dismiss something that was tough for me to deal with. I get where you're coming from, but you aren't a part of the groups he has hurt. Please have some empathy. I was like 15 when Content Cop was popping and it had a direct effect on me and my friend group. It made us feel like using certain slurs was a lot more okay than it was. It feels like Charlie is being extremely generous with his assumption that most people understood the slurs to just be a joke. You don't have to dive very far into Idubbbz' community to see the horrible, genuinely bigoted fan base that he has fostered with his old content. I think it's perfectly understandable to become guilty and self-loathing seeing something like that caused by yourself. Charlie had screwed up big time and his entire fanbase had turned against him, which prompted him to quickly post a follow-up video on the topic titled Huge L Take, where he brings up the criticism and implies that it was just a misunderstanding between him and his viewers.
Which means it's my responsibility to make my intentions known and clear. And I don't always fully convey it effectively.
And then he goes on to clarify and apologize in typical Charlie fashion for the way he messed up in his previous video.
The point of my video was never to attack the idea that someone growing and regretting things they've done in their past is a bad thing. I really thought I made that clear, but I must have missed the mark since so many people are saying that the whole core component of my video is to attack the fact that he's apologizing for personal growth and doing things that make him happy, which I never meant to convey, and if that's what came across, then I'm sorry that I missed the mark so drastically.
Just hold the L, brother. You earned it. Even the most reliable voices can slip up, and while Charlie is known for his brutal honesty, he's not always as meticulous with his research, which has led to a few instances of misinformation slipping through. One such instance started with Penguinz0 posting a series of videos dissing YouTuber and comedian Noodles and a comedy show that he had organized. But much to his dismay, his videos were later found out to be very poorly researched, and some of the things being said were just plain wrong, which was pointed out extensively by YouTuber Sid Dwyer in his video titled "We Need to Talk About Critical's Misinformation Problem." Charlie's first video on Noodles was titled "I've Never Seen Something This Horrible," where he made fun of the event and also spoke out about the format of the show.
It's gonna be a really special night today. We have some really amazing comedians. We're gonna just roast the shit out of each other for your enjoyment.
So, that's not exactly the format. What he did is he assembled a few people who said they've told a joke before in their life, and he had them roast each other. But they didn't. Nobody knew each other. Literally nobody. So all they can do is roast each other's appearance because they don't know them. They're random people that he got together and told them to roast each other. So it leads to the most awful, uncomfortable moments I've seen on the big stage.
Except, he was completely incorrect about what he said so confidently to his audience, and Sid calls him out for spreading misinformation in its purest form.
And that is just completely untrue. This wasn't just a random group of strangers. They all either knew each other or knew of each other. Yes, Charlie was actually correct in saying that these two people hadn't met before, but to assume that everybody there hadn't met before was just completely inaccurate.
Well, just to paint a picture, everybody here knew each other, right? Like they were either friends with Steven or friends with Corey or friends with somebody, and everybody kind of pulled together.
But the fact that he says that nobody there knew each other when he literally just doesn't know if that's true or not is just spreading misinformation in its purest form. And he uses that information that he made up out of thin air to say that that is why the roast is so awful. Like he repeats it multiple times throughout the video as if it is actually true. But this is something that he completely made up.
Noodles made an apology video in response to Charlie's commentary, except it was just a satirical joke video and not a genuine apology.
The greatest crime that I committed was to have caused the great moist critical to cringe. Would like to extend my sincerest apologies for causing you to cringe while watching my roast battle.
Charlie then makes a second video reacting to Noodles' apology, titled "My Response to the Drama." And right off the bat, you can see that Charlie thought this was a genuine apology video, and he took it pretty seriously.
I also don't understand why he titled the video an apology to Moist Critical. He doesn't owe anyone an apology, least of all me. I loved it. I thought it was delightful. But at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. He put on an event and it didn't go over super well with the majority of people, and that's fine.
He then realized that the entire apology was sarcastic and dramatic.
I just can't help myself. I can't keep my dick in my pants when it comes to creating problems and destroying my career. I just need to f it. My career. I need to f it up.
I think it's important to note that this entire 10-minute video is sarcastic. The entire 10 minutes is spent in full sarcastic monologue like it's a high school drama club exercise. And I really don't see why he would think that's a good idea.
But unfortunately, what Charlie missed is that the whole apology was meant to be a joke, and that Def Noodles' channel was known for having unserious content.
He is joking. Yes, it is not funny by any means, but it is obviously a joke. This is not a genuine apology. If Charlie looked into Def's content just a little bit, he would know that for the last month, Def has been making these joke apologies. It's super easy to miss the point with one of Def's jokes, but it was very obvious that his apology was a joke, even if you didn't know that he's been doing it as a thing. So that is Charlie just completely misrepresenting a situation because he didn't do his research beforehand.
Despite the massive negative reception for the first Super Roast battle, Def Noodles continued to organize more roast battles, and much to his misfortune, he would be back on the spotlight of shame soon, when one of his Super Roast battles got seriously out of control, and Charlie made a video reacting to the drama titled, "YouTuber Comedy Event Ends in Disaster."
Red Mark! Red Mark! Red Mark! Red Mark!
At first I thought this was staged, because it looks like something straight out of the WWE. I was half expecting Stone Cold Steve Austin to come out with a beer and a chair and hit Def Noodles in the back with it. But it wasn't. This is as raw as it gets. Def Noodles truly did blast through the door like the Kool-Aid Man and shove this guy into the crowd.
Charlie then goes on to talk about possible reasons why Def Noodles assaulted another guy on stage.
See, there was a lot of power and anger behind that push on an unsuspecting guy on stage. Again, I don't know the history between this guy and Def Noodles, but apparently the reason he pushed him is because that guy, whose name is Salvo, went to the show to harass the crowd and interrupt the show. He also encourages fans to fight Def Noodles fans in the crowd, and Def Noodles retweeted that explanation with the truth. So if this account is to be believed, then the guy went there with the sole intention of causing a bit of a ruckus, a little pandemonium and chaos. Now, I think no matter what, it's a big overreaction from Def Noodles here. Unless, of course, there was an imminent threat where the guy was on stage talking about he's gonna start throwing hands with everyone in the front row or something, or making like legitimate threats to the crowd. Couldn't tell you, but it does seem like a massive overreaction from Def Noodles here. He pushes him from behind and then hides behind his friends to keep the other guy off of him.
He also criticizes Def Noodles for unnecessarily taking matters into his own hands instead of calling security like a normal person, emphasizing how easily this mess could have been avoided.
He wasn't the one being threatened or in any immediate danger, and if he felt like the audience was in danger, he should have called security to handle the situation instead of trying to take it into his own hands like Batman, like some kind of vigilante. You know, this is a situation where he should have relied on the professionals that were there. Apparently there was security there, so he should have had them do their job and take this guy away if he felt like he was a danger to the crowd. But he didn't. He came up and shoved him from behind, and I don't think there's any way for him to really justify that and come out looking good from it.
Charlie was right to talk about Def Noodles' overreaction, which was very much unwarranted. But what Charlie didn't know is that Salvo Pancakes, the guy who got assaulted, was actually invited to the event by Def Noodles, and not some random guy who got on the stage with the intention to derail the event like Charlie had previously speculated.
And in Charlie's reaction video, he says that he doesn't know the guy involved, and he doesn't know anything leading up to it. And he actually does come under fire for spreading misinformation about Salvo Pancakes in this video. Charlie essentially says that this guy, Salvo Pancakes, only showed up to harass people and cause commotion. And that isn't fully true. Def Noodles and Salvo did have an arrangement that Salvo would show up and they would do a roast together at this event. But in spite of the arrangement, causing chaos is pretty much all Salvo did.
Many fans and several YouTubers called Charlie out for not having looked into the situation as thoroughly as he should have before posting his video, and even Salvo Pancakes himself took to the internet to call Charlie lazy.
So yeah, since Charlie's take on the situation was basically that Salvo was just some random guy that showed up to cause a scene, Salvo did not like that, considering there was some kind of arrangement with Def beforehand.
But you don't do any research, you don't look into it, you don't really even care, you know, and it becomes a problem when you put it out and then people think that I went there to harass and to straight up cause a commotion. Wow, you know, that truly doesn't really bother me that people think that. It just goes to show you how lazy you are and about how you really don't really think about the content that you're making, and you rather put on a clean white shirt and you brush your hair, you put on a snapback, you press record, and you mumble and you monotone through another video. leaving everything to be desired.
After being caught in the crossfire, Charlie made a fourth video, this time addressing his mistakes, titled I Got Called Out, where he takes full accountability for not knowing about the context of the situation and apologizes to his viewers for spreading misinformation.
I've been called out for getting something wrong in regards to the person who got pushed. Now, I will fully admit I didn't know the whole context of the person who got pushed. I assumed it was just another audience member going up there to deliver a roast, as we saw in the last one. But apparently there's a very deep lore between him and Noodles, and it's so deep that it makes Tolkien's work look like creative writing done by a child. There's so many twists and turns with so many layers to this onion, it's remarkable. And I was called out by a couple YouTubers as well as Salvo, the person in the video himself, for not knowing this connection. And I take full responsibility for not researching this far enough. I just made the assumption that it was like the first super roast battle where it was just random people that Noodles lured in here, probably with the false pretense that it was going to be a popular stream or something. I didn't know that there was anything deeper to it, and I'm sorry for that.
Despite this misinformation problem, no one can deny that Charlie truly deserves the respect of his fans for being so transparent, for fixing his mistakes whenever he gets called out for it. Charlie has no toxic ego. Whenever he is told he's wrong about something, he makes a video without delay to correct it. More YouTubers should take notes. This is why I have a ton of respect for this man. He's probably the only YouTuber I've ever seen that really genuinely apologizes for messing up or getting something wrong.